In this tutorial, I'll show you how to build a masonry layout with HTML and CSS, no JavaScript needed. I'm using VS Code with the live server extension to view the project. The HTML and CSS are already in place. You'll find starter files and final code linked in the description. And while you're down there, hit like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. Let's get started. So all of our masonry items go inside a main element with a class of main, and then each item is an article with a class of article item. I have my images inside of figure tags. The figures have a class of image, and then we have a div with our content, which contains a category, an H2, and some lorem ipsum as description. So with the main being the container, we'll start with .main, max width 75 rems, and then margin 0 auto to center. Perfect. On the main container, the parent container, this is where I define columns. And I'm going to say 4 as in 4 columns, auto as in browser, you decide how wide those columns should be. And you can see here that there's some overlap, so let's make sure that our images are responsive. And we're going to say max width 100%, height auto. There we go. So now we have all of our columns. Let's go ahead and get the margin off of our figure tags, margin 0. And you can see here now that we have some very nice and tidy columns. So next, how do we keep our articles from breaking? Because this article, title 22, Peaches in a Crate in the Sunshine, has content that is going over to the next column. So the way we do that is article item, and we just say break inside a void. And now you can see that all of our article items are contained and they are not breaking into the next container. Break inside a void tells the browser, hey, don't break this element across columns. It keeps the entire item together so it doesn't get split awkwardly. Technically, break inside is part of the CSS fragmentation spec. It works in multi-column paged or print layouts, but in our case, it's just keeping our masonry cards from splitting. Next, I'm going to add some padding on the bottom to push those items apart and give them a little more breathing room. And you can see there it's nice and pushed down. In a multi-column layout, margin bottom sits outside the elements box. That's why I'm using padding bottom instead. Padding is inside the box, so it stays attached to the element and creates a reliable spacing even across columns. Now, our columns aren't really responsive, so let's go ahead and add a couple of media queries to make these nice and responsive. I'm going to start with a media query and a max width of 960 pixels, and we'll go ahead and say .main columns to auto. Then we'll say at media, max width, 600 pixels, .main, columns 1, auto. And now we have 2 at a breakpoint of 960 pixels, and we have 1 at a breakpoint of 600 pixels. So it's also nice and responsive. Let's go ahead and add just some basic styles to clean this up. And so next I'm going to start with styling just this article wrap. So we'll do article wrap. I'll give the content 1 rem of padding, and then I'm going to do a border bottom, and we'll just go ahead and say 4 pixels, solid, and I'll give it a gray color. Next, let's go ahead and add a border all the way around. 1 pixel, solid. And this also adds a border all the way around. So we have it in a nice little container. Next, let's go ahead and style this H2, which is also a link. And we'll say secondary heading. I'm going to tighten up that line height. To 1.25. And then we'll say secondary heading. Text decoration, none. Now we have a slightly tighter heading. That looks pretty good. Next, let's go ahead and style the article category. We'll go ahead and put that right here. And I'm going to say text, transform uppercase, and then text align, and we'll just go ahead and center it. Just like that. And let's give it also a little bit of letter spacing of 1 pixel, because I just think that looks nice. There we go. And I think I'll add some rounded corners to the top of the images as well. So I'll say border, top left radius, 10 pixels, and then we'll say border, top right radius, also 10 pixels. And then we have to say overflow hidden because we're putting the border radius on the figure. And there we go. We have a nice border radius on the top of those images. And now we have a nice masonry layout using columns and break inside. You can obviously add more styles to align with what you're building. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and happy coding.